Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today I wanted to talk about, again, continuing with the Devatas. Wanted to seek the blessings of Shri Radha Krishna, Radha Madhava, Radha Shyam, Krishna Balaram, Gaunita, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj. Today, we end the assembled devotees so that we can continue with trying to understand these wonderful devatas. So we've talked about Lord Brahma, Shiva, Durga Mata, Ganesh, Indra, Surya, Chandra, Agni, and now today we wanted to talk about Yamraj. Yamraj is very famous. He is the great-great-grandson of Lord Brahma, is a great-grandson of Marichi, the grandson of Kashyap and Aditi, the nephew of Vamandev, the son of Vivaswan. So Vivaswan is the son of Kashyap and Aditi. So there he's the Aditya, and Shamgya. He's the brother of Yami. Yami is Yamuna, Vaivasvata Manu, and the Ashwini Kumaras. His husband of 13 daughters of Daksha, the first Daksha, and the 10 daughters of Daksha, second Daksha, when he reappeared. He's the father of Sri Narnarayan, the 8 Vasus, including Agni, Bhadrashvara, and father of Yudhishthir. So Yudhishthir is regarded to be Dharmaraja's son, because Kunti Devi called upon Yamraj. Jayanta, expansion of Vasudev, many others. He is the grandfather of Vishwakarma and Shishumara and Swaro Sisha Manu, great-grandfather of Chakshush Manu. His residence is in heavenly city called Samya Mani on Yamlok. He's the brother of Shraddhadev Manu and the step-brother of Shani, and his son is Kartila. So, Samgya, the wife of Vivaswan, the sun god, gave birth to the Manu named Shraddhadev, and the same fortunate wife also gave birth to the twins Yamraj and Yamuna. Yamuna is the river. Now, Shraddhadev or Vaivasvata Muni, I'm not sure if they're interchangeable, but they're one of the Manus. Yamraj is one of the Mahajans, one of the 12 persons who are authorized to properly maintain human civilization. They are the Mahajan. Jan, it means person, and Maha, great person. So who are these 12? Brahma is one, Narad, Shiva, the Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras, Manu, Kapil, Bhishma, Prahlad, Janakaraj, Bali Maharaj, Shukadev Goswami, also known as Vaibhasaki. That's the 11 plus Yamraj, 12 Mahajans. They're regarded to be great authorities on Vedic scriptures. Yamraj is also Dharamvit. His name is Dharamraj, because he knows how to punish a person on religious principles. He's also called Antak and Mrityu. Yamraj or Dharamraj, as a superintendent of death, has to judge the criminal living entities who have committed sinful activities throughout their lives. Consequently, Yamraj is expected to be most expert in judicial matters. Yes, Prabhaben? Oh, you muted, huh?
Hare Krishna to
Hare Krishna.
you and all the devotees. I know you're you're reading about Yamaraja. Just a quick question. Is this the Yamaraja one, the one which when person die and he comes and tells?
Same.
Is the same one, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
you
the one
very
who
much.
metes out the punishment.
All right. And they say that Yamra, when people is dying, the Yamraja is coming.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's the one. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you
same,
very much.
same.
Thank you.
So he's an expert in judicial matters. Although Yamraj is the controller, he's only a departmental controller of a few living entities. There are other demigods who control many other departments, and above them all is the one supreme controller, Krishna. In Puranas, Yam is described as follows: having 4 arms, protruding fangs, complexion of storm clouds, so he's dark grayish. He's got a wrathful expression. He's surrounded by a garland of flames. He's dressed in red, yellow, or blue garments. He holds a noose and a mace or a sword. Rides on a water buffalo. Holds a noose of rope in one hand. Holds a danda, which is a Sanskrit word for staff. Generally, Yamraj is portrayed in a fearful way, so is often pictured as black. But actually, he's a demigod and he should be fair complexioned. He's a Mahajan and a Vaishnava as well. And he's also very good looking. So, but this is how he's usually conveyed. There's the water buffalo, he's got 4 hands, very dark looking, like a rain cloud, quite fierce looking. But actually, that may not be his true appearance. The omnipotent Yamaraj is as good as Lord Brahma, for while situated in his own abode, in everyone's heart like the Paramatma, he mentally observes the past activities of a living entity, and thus he understands how the living entity will act in future lives. He has the complete cooperation of the Supreme Lord, who is situated in everyone's heart. And therefore, by the grace of the Super Soul, he can see past, present, future of a living entity from within. He is the king of the Pitas. He resides in Pitalok with his personal assistants, like the Yamdutas. So we'll talk about them a bit later. He has been given jurisdiction on the southern or the lower portion of the universe, called Patalok. South of Sumeru mountain is Samya Mani, the abode of Yamraj, the supernal of death. It is said that there is an everlasting belt of water called the river Vaita Rani at the entrance of the plutonic planet Pluto of Yamraj. The abode of Yamraj is called Yamasadana. Vaita Rani is a river which lies in front of the doorway of Yamraj. Samya Mani is a residence of Yamraj. Yudhishthir Maharaj was the son of Dharmaraj. Maharaj Yudhishthir's mother, Kunti, had the power to call any demigod. She got this benediction from Durvasa Muni. So he, i.e., had her 3 sons, means Maharaj Yudhishthir, Bhima, and Arjun, from these different devatas. Yeah. She got Maharaj Yudhishthir from Dharmaraj. Arjun came from Indra, and Bhim came from Vayu. At the request of Lord Brahma, Prajapati Daksha, who is known as the Pitechas, begot 60 daughters in the womb of his wife, Ashikni. All the daughters were very affectionate towards their father. 10 of the daughters were given in charity to Dharmaraj. Their names are Bhanu, Lamba, Kakut, Yami, Mishva, Sadhya, Marut, Pati, Vasu, Muhurta, and Sankalpa. So the Lord, this is the Supreme Lord we're talking about now. He is the source of the Brahmins. They come from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. The Kshatriyas come from the arms. The Vaishya come from from his thighs, and the Sudras come from his feet. Greed is generated from his lower lip. Affection from his upper lip. bodily lust from his nose, animalistic lust, lusty desires from his sense of touch. And Yamraj is from his eyebrows. Very interesting. Eternal time from his eyelashes. Before going to the place of Yamraj, the living entity accepts Jara, old age, the sister of Yamraj. One is subjected to the influence of Yavanraj and his sister due to impious activity. Yamraj is the great devotee of the Lord, and he likes to be invited to kirtans and sacrifices by the pure devotees who are constantly engaged in devotional service. Thus, the great sages headed by Shonak and others invited Yamraj to attend the sacrifice performance at Naimisharanya. This was good for those who do not want to die. This is really interesting. So Yamraj is invited to attend satsang. Generally, we try to shy away from Yamraj, but actually the devotees invite him. Yavan is the servant of Yamraj. The Yamadutas are the assistants or messengers of Yamaraj. When Yamraj and his assistants take a living entity away to a place of judgment, the life air, and desires being followers of living entity also go with him. When the living entity and the fire airs are gone, the lump of matter produced of 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, is rejected and left behind. The living entity then goes to the court of judgment, and Yamraj decides what kind of body he's going to get next. This process is unknown to modern scientists. Every living entity is responsible for his activities in this life. And after that, he is taken to the court of Yamraj, where it is decided what kind of body he will take next. Although the gross material body is left, the living entity and his desires, as well as the resultant reactions of his past activities, go on. It is Yamraj who decides what kind of body one gets next in accordance with one's past actions. Yamraj is deputed by the Lord to a particular planet, some hundreds of thousands of miles away from the planet of Earth, to take away the corrupt souls after death, convict them in accordance with their respective sinful activities. Yama is closely associated with Agni in the Rig Vedas. Agni is both Yam's friend and priest. In the Rig Veda, Yamraj is the king of the dead, and one of the 2 kings that humans see when they reach heaven, the other being Varun, which we will cover later. He also becomes associated with Antak, the end, Mrityu, death, Niti, disease, and sleep. Yamraj has very little time to take leave from his responsible office of punishing the wrongdoers. There are more wrongdoers than righteous men. Therefore, Yamraj has to do more work than the other demigods, who are also authorized agents of the Supreme Lord. However, he wants to preach the glories of the Lord. Therefore, by the will of the Lord, he is cursed by Manduka Muni to come into the world in the incarnation of Vidur and work very hard as a great devotee. So Vidur was a wonderful devotee of Krishna, and he plays a huge role in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's discussions between him and Uddhav, and him and Maitreya, which extend over a few cantos. So Vidur was a very, very important personality, great devotee of the Lord. He preached to Dhritarashtra, pastimes of Vidur. He is the incarnation of Yamaraja. He was conceived by Vyasdev in the womb of maidservant Ambika, mother of Maharaj Pandu. During the pastimes of Manduka Muni, the Muni cursed Yamraj to become a Shudra, because the Muni was actually subjected to a punishment, which was the Muni considered very excessive. I think he was put up on a stake because when he was a little child, he happened to kill some ants. And the Muni, when he found out the reason for his punishment, he became angry at Yamraj and he cursed him, "You are no better than a Shudra, become a Shudra." So this Shudra incarnation of Yamraj was known as Vidur. He was a Shudra brother of Dhritarashtra and Maharaj Pandu. But he was also equally treated by Bhishma, along with his other nephews. And in due course, Vidur was married with a girl who was also born in a family, in the womb of a Shudrani by a Brahmin. Although Vidur did not inherit the property of his father, the brother of Bhishma, still he was given sufficient state property by Dhritarashtra, the eldest brother of Vidur. Vidur was very much attached to his elder brother, and all along he tried to guide him on the right path. Due to the war of Kurukshetra, Vidur repeatedly implored his elder brother to do justice to the sons of Pandu. But Duryodhana did not like such interference by his uncle, and thus he practically insulted Vidur. And that insult led to Vidur leaving home for pilgrimage and taking instructions from Maitreya Rishi. So this is what I was mentioning, the Bhagavatam. A lot of the Bhagavatam is based on this conversation. Vidur is one of the administrative demigods in charge of Prithalok. When Yamraj thus incarnated himself as Vidur, actually that should be Yamraj, right? So when he incarnated as Vidur, his post was officiated by Aryama, one of the many sons of Kashyap and Aditi. The Adityas are the sons of Aditi, and there are 12 Adityas. Aryami is one of the 12 Adityas. Therefore, it was quite possible for him to take charge of the office of Yamraj during the 100 years absence in the form of Vidur. The conclusion is that Vidur was never a Shudra, but was greater than the purest type of Brahman. And then there's a wonderful pastime of Savitri and Satyavan in the Vana Parva, when Yudhishthira asked the sage Markandeya whether there has ever been a woman whose devotion matched Draupadi. The sage replied by relating the story of Savitri and Satyavan. So you may have heard this story before. Yamraj admired Savitri's courage and intellect. Savitri was more dazzling and beautiful than any other woman in the world. So when she was young, she was very, very beautiful. When it came time for her to be married, she had no suitors because all men around her were intimidated by her beauty and her sharp mind. Her father washed his hands off the responsibility to get his daughter married, suitably married, and asked her to find a husband for herself. Savitri found handsome Satyavan, whose father was not only blind, but had lost his kingdom. And then Narad tells her that Satyavan will only live for 1 year from the day they marry. Now, her father did not object to the marriage. Right? And Savitri, she left home. She went to live with Satyavan, who was very poor because his parents had lost the kingdom. And they lived on the edge of a forest where Satyavan earned a living as a woodcutter. On the day that Satyavan is supposed to die, Savitri goes with him to the forest. As he is chopping wood, he is overcome with fatigue and falls asleep in her lap. Savitri knows that this is the moment of his death. When Yamraj comes to claim his body and soul, Savitri refuses to leave her husband and follows the god of death. Yamraj repeatedly tells her, go back. And each time she argues with him, extolling first the virtues of obedience to Dharma and then the company of good people. So Yamraj is telling her, don't come with me. But she's giving him very good reasons why she should not leave him. Eventually, Satyavan praises Yamraj himself, wielder of the rod of punishment, dispenser of justice. Yamraj is impressed not only with her devotion to her husband, but by her intellect. Each time she defeats him with one of her arguments, he offers her a boon, any boon except the return of her husband's life. So he tells her, you can have anything you want except your husband. So first, Savitri asks her father-in-law's sight be restored. She's such an amazing person. She says, yes, let my father-in-law be able to see. Then she asks that his kingdom be returned to the father-in-law. And finally, she asks Yamaraj, let her be the mother of 100 sons. And Yamaraj is happy to grant her all these wishes. And then he realizes, oh, the boon cannot be fulfilled unless Satyavan comes back to life as her husband, because he blessed her with 100 sons. So Yamaraj admits defeat and Satyavan awakes as if from a deep sleep. So Yamaraj restored Satyavan to life only because Savitri was so devoted. She was willing to follow her husband, even into the realm of the dead. It was this single wifely virtue, more than any other, that compelled the god of death to agree to her demand. So this is really powerful, powerful stuff. Amazing. And then there's the Yaksha Prashna. It is in the Mahabharata. And what happened one day, while living in exile in the forest, so they were in exile for 13, 14 years, whatever it was, Yudhishthira, he finds that while attempting to drink water from a lake, all his brothers have been killed by a mysterious yaksha. Yakshas are celestial entities. So this yaksha is in the form of a crane. And he also challenges Yudhishthira to answer his questions, or he will face the same consequences as his brothers. So the crane asks lots of questions. Impressed by Yudhishthira's strict adherence to Dharma and his answers to the riddles posed by the crane, by the Yaksha, then Yamraj reveals himself. So this Yaksha was no other than Yamraj, who is his father. And he blesses him. He brings the other Pandavas back to life. Yudhishthira's answers to the Yakshas were as follows. So these are the questions and the answers, right? So question, who is a real helpful companion? That's the question. The answer, steady intelligence is a very good friend and can save one from danger. Question, how can one acquire something very great? Everything desirable can be attained by the performance of austerity. So tapasya. What is amrit? Nectar. Milk is just like nectar. So this is the yaksha, this is the crane. These are the four brothers. They tried to drink the water without answering the questions and they died. Well, they fainted at least. And then there's Yudhishthira answering the questions very patiently. And then this is Yamraj coming to bless him. Question, what is the friend bestowed upon man by the demigods? Wife is such a friend. So the wife can be the best friend. What is the best of happiness? True happiness comes as a result of contentment. Why does one give in charity to Brahmins, artists, servants, and kings? So the answer, for religious merit, prestige, maintenance, and protection, respectively. Question, why does one forsake friends? Lust and greed leads to one forsaking friends. Question, what is the only food? Answer, the cow is the only food, for the milk she produces is used to make ghee, clarified butter, which is used to perform sacrifices, pleased by which the demigods give rain, which causes the rain to grow. Therefore, it should be understood that the cow is the root cause of all kinds of food. This is a really interesting answer. Question, what is the king of knowledge? Yudhishthira. Knowledge pertaining to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the king of all knowledge. What is ignorance? Not knowing one's constitutional duty. Living entities being thus fried in this pan. This is real news of what is happening in the material world, which is a miserable place full of ignorance. So if we don't know what our duty is, we're in ignorance. What is the best bath? That which cleanses the mind of all impurities. What is the best? What is a real charity? Real charity is protecting one from the onslaught of material nature. Question: since dharma, virtue, artha, and karma, profit and desire, are opposed to each other, how can they coexist harmoniously? Answer: these three become congenial to one another when one has a virtuous wife. Question: who is condemned to everlasting hell? Yudhishthir: when one promises a Brahman charity, but upon his arrival refuses to give him charity. Question: what makes a Brahman? Birth, learning, or behavior? Yudhishthir answers: it is behavior alone that makes a person a Brahman. Even one who is expert in the four Vedas, born of Brahman parents whose behavior is not proper, should be considered a Shudra. Who is pleasing? Yudhishthir answers: a person who speaks in a pleasing manner. And finally, the Yaksha asks 4 questions of great significance. Who is truly happy? One who cooks his own food, i.e. not dependent on anyone. One who is not a debtor, does not spend more than he can afford, does not have to leave home to make a living, i.e. does not have to over-endeavor for material things. They're truly happy. Those 3 things: makes his own food, i.e. not dependent on others, lives within his means, and it does not over-endeavor. They're really happy. What is the most wonderful thing? This is one of the most amazing answers. The most amazing thing is that even though every day one sees countless living entities dying, he still acts and thinks that he will live forever. So we see people around us dying, relatives, maybe friends, but we think we're never going to die. This is how we're behaving. And another question, which is, what is the real path to follow in this life? The best path is to follow in the footsteps of the pure devotees, for they are the actual Mahajans whose heart are the seating place of the real truths regarding religion. And the final question: what is news? What is real situation in this material world? What is the news? The material world is like a frying pan. The sun is the fire. The day and the nights are the fuel. The passing seasons are the stirring laden. And time is the cook. All living entities are thus being fried in this pan. This is the real news of what is happening in this material world, which is a place, material place full of ignorance. So this is really interesting. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna states, of the celestial nags, I am Anant. Of aquatic deities, I am Varun. Of departed ancestors, I am Aryam. And of dispensers of law, I am Yam, the law of death. So Krishna is non-different from Yam. And in the Bhagavatam, there's many references to Yamaraj. A detailed account of the punishment of a sinner upon their death is also provided, beginning with their seizure and journey to Yamlok. As a criminal is arrested for punishment by the constables of the state, a person engaged in criminal sense gratification is similarly arrested by the Yamadutas, who bind him by the neck with a strong rope and cover his subtle body so that he may undergo severe punishment. While carried by the constables of Yamaraj, he is overwhelmed and trembles in their hands. While passing on the road to Yamlok, he is bitten by dogs. He can remember the sinful activities of his life. He is terribly distressed. This is Canto 3, Chapter 3, text 20-21. And then we have this 6th canto, Yamaraja instructs his messengers, the Yamadutas, when questioned about who has the supreme authority in the universe, since there are so many gods and demigods. So Yamaraj says, my dear servants, you have accepted me as a supreme, but factually I am not. Above me and above all the other demigods, including Indra and Chandra, is the one supreme master and controller. The partial manifestations of his personality are Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, who are in charge of creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this universe. He is like two threads that form the length and breadth of woven cloth. The entire world is controlled by him, just as a bull is controlled by a rope in his nose. So that's 6th canto, chapter 3, text number 12. In the 10th canto, Krishna and Balaram travel to Yam's abode to bring back the dead sons of their guru, Sandipani Muni. Lord Janardhan took the conch shell that had grown around the body, the demon's body, and went back to the chariot. Then he proceeded to Samyami, the beloved capital of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. Upon arriving there with Lord Balaram, he blew loudly his conch shell, and Yamaraj, who keeps the conditioned souls in check, came as soon as he heard the resounding vibration. Yamaraj elaborately worshipped the two lords with great devotion. And then he addressed Krishna, who lives in everybody's heart. Oh, Supreme Lord Vishnu, what shall I do for you and Balaram, who are playing the part of ordinary humans? The Supreme Personality of God had said, suffering the bondage of his past activity, my spiritual master's son was brought here to you. O great king, obey my command and bring this boy to me without delay. Yamaraj said, so be it, and brought forth the Guru's son. Then those two most exalted Yadus presented the boy to their spiritual master, said to him, please select another boon. That's the 10th canto. In the Brahma Puran, Yam is the Lord of Justice, associated with Dharam as well. He has Yama has a daughter, Suniti, and a grandson called Vena, who turned his back on Dharam. So we've come across Vena, King Vena, in the Bhagavatam as well. In this same Puran, there's chapter 20 describes the various hells. Chapter 30, Yam chastises his mother for cursing his father. I'm not sure about that pastime. Chapter 35, Yam is destroyed by Shiva after coming to claim the soul of Markandeya. So again, a pastime which we know familiar with. Chapter 48, there's a description. Krishna describes himself as Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Indra, and Yamraj as well. I am Yam, who restrains the universe. Chapter 105. So there's so many references in the Brahma Purana to Yamraj. Description of the terrible servants of Yam. These are the Yamadutas. They look fierce. We'll see them in a minute. 126, description of the agony of death for sinners, including being caught by Yamraj with his noose and tortures suffered in his abode. Chapter 24, Book 4. Yama is killed in battle by Kartikeya on Shiva's order. Yama is revived by Nandini. So this is a statement in the Brahma Puran. Riding on his terrible buffalo, the god of death, Yama, hastened to that place. He was holding his spectra, rod of chastisement. His physical body was yellow in color. In prowess, he was comparable to none. He was unparalleled in brilliance, strength, and power of demanding obedience. His limbs were well developed and he wore garlands. In the Garud Puran, he's described Yama in his realm, where sinners are punished, is detailed extensively, including the 12th chapter called The Realm of Yama. In this text, the name of Yama's wife is Shyamala. And this is a little idea of the Yamadutas. They're pretty ferocious looking characters. In the Bhagavatam, the story is of Ajamil. Ajamil, at the end of his life, chanted the name of his son, Narayan. And Yamaraj's servants, the Yamadutas, came to snatch Ajamil because he had been very sinful most of his life. But because he had chanted the name of Narayan, even though he was intending to call his son, the Vishnu Dutas came and they told the Yamadutas, stay away from Ajamil. And the Yamadutas became very confused. And they came to Yamaraja and said, we were stopped from taking this sinful Ajamil by these really effulgent looking characters. And we couldn't do anything. So we thought you are the supreme and we were acting on your behalf, but it looks like you may not be the supreme. So then Yamraj explains, no, I'm not the supreme. Actually, supreme is Vishnu or Krishna, like that. So that's the end of this particular pastimes that we wanted to share. Any questions, any comments? Okay, Yamraj ki jai.